we have Maritime Environment and Climate, Coastal, Port, and Waterway Security. And for this one, we have Alyssa Malcolmson coming to speak on that.
Hello, everyone. Let me get situated. My name is Alyssa Malcolmson, and I'm a program manager in Maritime Immigration Security Solutions Division. Here at DHS, I provide decision-making, financial analysis, and program and project support on a variety of projects such as alternative energy, ontology, next generation maritime public communications, and waterway analysis and management systems. Should probably. So this lovely topic is maritime environment and climate, coastal, port, and waterway security. That is a handful. So this is a high-level overview of our topic. As we all know, the United States is a maritime nation surrounded by miles and miles of shoreline. Because of this, the protection of our waterways, ports of entry, and coastline borders from emerging maritime threats is imperative. Due to changing maritime technological landscapes and changing threats, we seek to provide DHS component customers the tools and resources they need to meet their critical operational needs. We aim to develop innovative, cutting-edge technology solutions to enhance capabilities to prevent illegal maritime activities, search and seizure, search and rescue, and to protect our ports and coastlines. This leads me to talking a little bit about the Maritime Safety and Security Program, which is continuously planning for new efforts, exploring maritime domain awareness, maritime security, and maritime climate and environmental research and development. So S&T's Maritime Safety and Security Program, MSS, as we call it and refer to, conducts innovative research and technology in the maritime domain through a multi-focused approach based on the necessary capabilities required for those customer components to accomplish their missions. As I mentioned previously, we manage the research and development activities that are creating those next generation technology to interdict the crimes, improve maritime safety and security, perform those search and rescue missions, and advance communications, and to protect the environment. Current efforts focus on strengthening port and coastal resiliency, developing remotely operated technologies, integrating radars to detect illegal vessels or dark vessels, and enhancing resource and information sharing across DHS and its partners and customers. The MSS objective and mission is ever evolving based on the customer demands, emerging technologies, and changes in the maritime environment. So who are our customers? So we are primarily in 3 business lines. The first one is supporting law enforcement activities. The second one is safety, like those search and rescue missions. And the third one is regulatory. So an example of that would be our waterway aids to navigation for Coast Guard, as well as if the enforcement, if ships are dumping oily bilge water overboard rather than paying to have them pumped at a port. Coast Guard regulates the operation of commercial vessels and safeguards the efficient movement of maritime commerce, which is valued at approximately, I believe, 5 trillion annually. Other customers to mention, as you can see on the screen, include Coast Guard, Custom and Border Protection, U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement, but just remember, we are always looking to expand our customer base. Well, this slide got a little messed up. Oh, thank you. Sorry. So here are focus areas. I apologize. So PC&S is our first focus area, and it's a joint effort by S&T and DHS components to identify, develop, and transition technologies that can be leveraged to improve maritime domain awareness by improving, developing, or integrating sensors and platforms, edge analytics, information sharing technologies, mission support tools, and decision support capabilities to benefit a variety of entities such as the federal government, local government, the general public, and private sector, as well as international. Our next one is remote maritime technologies. This focuses on the development and transition of operational capabilities, which dramatically strengthens the safety and security of our maritime domain. Developing state-of-the-art capabilities enhances the ability to detect illicit activities. Port and waterway resiliency. The purpose of this is to develop and transition technical capabilities to the Coast Guard that improves Coast Guard's situational awareness of navigational aids, cyber threats to ports, and overall risks to the maritime transportation system by leveraging emerging technologies and developing new tools to conduct an analysis of the U.S. waterways. And our last one is Data Hub analytics. So the purpose of Data Hub is to develop and transition operational artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities, which also dramatically strengthens the safety and security of our maritime domain by achieving unparalleled operational effectiveness and efficiency to detect and identify activities of interest to safeguard the lawful use of those waters. I also want to highlight a couple of current and future work within these focus areas. So I had mentioned dark vessels earlier. We are actually looking in the expansion of dark vessels detection through new sensor modalities and data processing techniques to collect and identify. Past work has demonstrated how the use of highly integrated legacy sensor technologies have proven to be very effective. Our program recently delivered a fully integrated end-to-end solution, which has resulted in several thousand pounds of cocaine being seized in this past year. Because of the immense effectiveness, DHS is planning a very large acquisition program around this to expand it across our maritime border regions. This effort has helped to identify research and development follow-on initiatives, which will be pursued to fill technology or capability gaps with the legacy sensors and enable the expansion of the sensor technologies and the underlying architecture across more of our maritime domain areas. Another item I'd like to highlight is the protection. We're also focused on the protection of maritime navigation infrastructure to ensure safe and free waterways. Currently, we are actually doing a research study analyzing maritime port networks to understand how those resources are deployed and identified. Deployed so we can identify research, development, test, and evaluation needs that are unique to the maritime transportation system. The study aims to better understand how commercial port operators deploy their informational and operational technology systems, the resiliency of those systems, and what improvements can be made to those systems, and especially for commercial port cyber in the commercial port cyber domain. Some other items I'd like to highlight is past work. We have done the development and delivery of 25 unique air, maritime, and counter unmanned aerial systems. Sorry, I didn't know if it was SUAS or CUAS, and intelligence analytics. These analytics were credited with the initial identification of more than 100 suspect air and maritime activities, including the identification of high altitude object in U.S. airspace. And the last one I'd like to acknowledge is our River Information System Enterprise, which is a recent transition actually for our program. This effort transitioned, it's called the LSAT, but that stands for Lock Status Analysis Tool, to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to better manage the maintenance of locks and dams that they oversee and officially move people and material to regions where they can provide the greatest impact. This effort will provide waterway managers with more effective and user-friendly capabilities to prepare, mitigate, respond to, and recover from incidents or disasters affecting the maritime transportation system. So challenges that we are currently facing. Although we have made some great strides, as I just noted, these are high-level challenges that we are facing. So the first one, secure data collectors. DHS manages significant data across a broad set of missions. It's often complex. The data is complex, raw to refined, and requires appropriate management. We lack the enterprise-wide data governance to ensure that it's secured, trusted, critical data is widely available and accessible in real time, usable, and where possible, linked for better correlation. This limits data-driven decisions, hides risks that would otherwise be discovered more clearly, and delays insights in the execution of swift and appropriate action. The next one is actually tools for the Maritime Transportation System Safety and Security, MTS. So MTS is a complex system composed of many types of assets, operations, and infrastructure that are operated and influenced by a wide variety of stakeholders. Because of this complexity, it is hard to develop effective tools to enhance the safety and security. MTS actually generates approximately 13 million jobs and contributes, according to Department of Transportation, 649 billion of the U.S. gross domestic product. They stated that in an article that I borrowed from them, that this waterborne cargo and associated activity contributes more than $500 billion to the U.S. GDP, generates over 200 billion in annual port sector, federal, state, and local taxes, and sustains over 10 million jobs. The next one is lack of remote maritime technologies. DHS is seeking to identify and evaluate appropriate information and operational technology to enable and enhance our maritime safety and security operations in the Arctic and in other remote areas, including maritime domain awareness, as well as developing secure, continuous, and uninterrupted voice and data communications. And the next bullet, our last bullet, is barriers with information sharing. So protecting the country from ever-evolving transnational threats requires a strengthened Homeland Security Enterprise, HSE, that shares information across traditional organizational boundaries. Fostering information sharing is obviously a core mission for DHS, but there's still work to be done. DHS aims to do the following. They want to consider information and data as national assets with appropriate safeguards for protecting, handling, and securing, enhancing a risk-informed culture that responsibly safeguards and shares information, obviously protecting individuals' PII, personally identifiable information, their privacy and their civil rights and civil liberties, promoting information sharing among our partners across HSE through training, implementation of incentives, providing the correct tools to share and safeguard, and to foster collaboration. Implementing this strategy is a very one of the top priorities for our department that would enable leadership across HSE to make decisions that are more informed. And last but not least, this is a lot of resources. So our top resource, the top link, goes to the Maritime Safety and Security website. Similar to the previous presentation, a lot of these are fact sheets, as you can see. And when you go onto our Maritime Safety and Security website, there's obviously a resource section, and you can click on that, and all these fact sheets will pop up. The other one I wanted to highlight is the second bullet, which is actually our 10-year roadmap brochure. So I actually have one here. Sorry, I didn't bring more, but you guys will have access to all of these. So this is our lovely roadmap. One thing I wanted to highlight is on this back page, it says a summary of roadmap projects and objectives. And after hearing all about the Maritime Safety and Security Program and knowing what we're looking for in terms of the LRBAA, some I wanted to highlight was the coastal port and waterway security, our maritime environment, climate, and economy, our maritime location and communication and emergency management, as well as our maritime analytics and all domain sensors. And that wraps up my presentation. Thank you all for being here and attending Industry Day. I'll see if I can answer it.
Sometimes, and I'm going to come over to the people online. Sometimes it can be challenging, and I don't know the answer to this, and maybe I should, but the transition of what we're developing under the LRBA, is this going to be stuff that is going to be adopted or transitioned to the government, or would some of this be going out to industry from what you've seen?
So it depends on the topic. So for the test bed research one, that would be going out to the industry, to all ports. So obviously I'll use New Orleans, that's run by the state. So but for other items such as one I'm currently working on, search and rescue, we are coming up with new rafts and testing them. That is going for Coast Guard, so that Coast Guard can do those search and rescue missions. And yes, they may eventually go to cruises, to be determined. So I don't exactly know on that one.
No, and I think, thank you for letting me put you on the spot. So I think this is something that in general folks need to make sure they're aware of. I know a lot of times when we put stuff out, the assumption can be that because we're putting out this topic that we are automatically going to be the consumers or we're going to buy. And so when you're looking at being able to submit, it's important to make sure you're looking at who is going to be that transition or that commercialization end person, customer, because that can matter as to whether we take R&D and actually make it successful. Is you as an entity, a business, an organization, need to make sure you understand how you would get that success there. So, and I don't know if there's any other.
I would say that there's also, like alternative energy. I'm also working on that project. That's kind of across the government. You see, obviously, Department of Energy is working on that. Department of Defense. I actually went to their summit not that long ago, their energy summit. So sometimes it's also about sharing resources, or if you're already very familiar working on an effort where you are helping Navy. Yes, we are not the Navy. And yes, Navy might want to do more loitering, could have potentially bigger vessels, where we might need to go from 80% of the time loitering to 20% of the time take off with the appropriate alternative energy resource to do that search and seizure. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I'll just add,
I'm so sorry.
No, thank you. And I'm sure people didn't want to have to carry it. So an electronic version is always welcome. But that does remind me that we were talking about TRLs earlier today, and Rosanna made a comment, I think it was Rosanna, in terms of where you are in the development of technology. So going to a technology that's being developed for the Navy that may have applicability for DHS, if it's a TRL 9, meaning it's being used, it's commercial, that doesn't exclude you from being able to get funding under an R&D project with S&T, because if you need to do further development to make that work in the DHS environment, it is no longer a TRL 9 for DHS. It would need that further R&D. So you can come back to us if you think there's something that you could leverage what's already been developed for the Navy and say, okay, now DHS, your more wealthy siblings, as I always like to call them, have funded this, and now we can come to you and provide a benefit to that work as well for you. So it's if you've worked with other agencies, it's also there's I haven't had a situation yet where somebody's put forward another agency where there hasn't been some piece of mission or R&D that there was an overlap with what our needs are. So thank you, and a delayed thank you very much for coming up. And I know this is one of the tough ones to talk about. So we have another short break. If you want to stay here, we'll be going with the next topic in about 5 minutes, or there's the other topic in the other room.